Welcome to Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft, the founder and CEO of Judith Heft and Associates, Financial and Lifestyle Concierge. This year, she's celebrating 27 years in business. In every episode, Judy interviews professionals who help others successfully manage their financial lives. You can find this show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Judy is the author of 2 books, How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money for a Better Today and Tomorrow, and her latest book, Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles, How to Successfully Manage Money in Every Decade of Life. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. Now, here's the host of Mastering Your Financial Life, Judy Heft.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to episode 97 of Mastering Your Financial Life. I'm really excited. We're almost at 100. So thank you. Thank you, Kelli Proia, for being my guest today. So Kelli is a lawyer success coach. She's got a great niche, and it's so interesting. She helps stressed out lawyers. And are there any that aren't stressed out? She helps stressed out lawyers transform their lives and start their own firms. And she also helps them create a work-life balance, which we all know is so important to our emotional, financial, and professional success. So it's really exciting to talk to Kelli and understand and hear how she does it and how she works with her clients. So welcome, Kelli. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Judy. This is awesome. I'm so excited to be here this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. So, tell me about your own experience as a lawyer. So you're a lawyer first, a non-practicing lawyer at this point, I would assume.
Correct.
And so, how did you tell us about your experience as a lawyer and how you decided to become a coach, coaching other lawyers and helping them to figure it out?
So I graduated law school in the late 90s and went directly in-house from law school. So I went and worked for a corporation. So I have a very unique perspective on the practice of law because I didn't start at a law firm. But about a dozen years into my career, I decided to start my own law firm. And I realized fairly quickly that I knew how to practice law. I didn't know how to run a law practice. Mm-hmm. I had never been taught how to run a law practice. And some will say, well, that's because you didn't work in a law firm. But I quickly realized as I learned marketing, learned how to network, learned how to put up a website, things like that, that the lawyers that I met, they didn't know how to practice law either. They didn't know how to run their businesses either. We were running our businesses by the seat of our pants, what felt good that day. The clients obviously came first. And I kind of realized also fairly quickly, this is really stressful. What keeps me up at night and what kept my lawyer friends up at night wasn't our clients' problems. Maybe if you were a litigator and you had to go into court for a criminal case, maybe that did keep you up at night. But what really kept us up at night is where was the next client going to come from? And how were we going to make sure we had the money to pay for our legal assistants and our paralegals and all the rest of it? So that's kind of where I started seeing someone really needs to teach lawyers how to run their law practices. And I was having lunch with a really good friend of mine, and he's like, you need to teach it because you really know something. After a bunch of years and a bunch of, books, I read a ton of books. I took online classes, sales, marketing, the whole thing. It was oh, I do know something. And so I opened Lawducate in 2014 as a quote unquote business school for lawyers that I was going to teach the things they didn't teach in law school.
Well, that's so great. I understand where you're coming from because I love the way you said you were running it by the seat of your pants, or people, a lot of lawyers run their businesses by the seat of their pants. That's a great expression that I use. I ran my business by the seat of my pants. When I first started, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years. And I grew up, I feel like I was born to be an entrepreneur. So it's a little different than your background, but I never learned how to do any of these marketing things and, writing a book or, getting out there and getting clients. It was just what I learned, what I did by rote. And I worked with a coach for about 5 years. I had a couple of different coaches, but the one I worked with for 5 years was phenomenal. And I learned so much that I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. And that's so true. And that really helped me propel my business. So I find that I feel like working with a coach is paramount to being successful, because you can read a lot of books, but it's just not the same. It really isn't, of someone like coaching you, giving you your own personal.
100%. So like if you think about the best of the best, like in sports, or like the best golfers in the world have coaches. They have swing coaches. They have putting coaches. Like they're winning tournaments. They're winning millions of dollars in endorsements and all of this stuff. And they have coaches. Like Michael Phelps won how many gold and Olympic medals? And it's just like, he has a coach, because coaches actually can see what we can't see. They're like outside observers who, when you're in it, when you're doing it, it's hard to have any perspective. And the coach gives you that perspective, and they give you that, like that voice where you can just say, have you ever thought of that? Or have you ever thought of this other thing? And you're like, oh no. Or do you realize you're doing this over and over and over again and it's not working? Like those type of things.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. It's so important. It's like you need to, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. I have a bookkeeping business, so I understand numbers, but I have professionals that help me with all of these different things, and so I think it's really important to have a professional helping you, because even if you learn a little bit from them, it's always helpful. You get something. So, what are some common challenges that you see lawyers facing today, and how do you work with them? How do you help them overcome these challenges?
So one of the biggest challenges I see is lawyers' relationship with time. So when I started actually in the legal profession, I was a legal assistant in 1993. So in 1993, we had 3 ways to communicate with our clients. It was by telephone, by letter, like literally putting a written letter in an envelope with a stamp in the mail, or the client would come to our office, or the lawyers would go to them. And there was time in between engagements. There was time in between. So like I could send the letter out, close the file, and put the file away, because I knew we wouldn't hear back from the client for like 2 weeks. Now we are expected to literally be on 24/7. We are available via every communication device. Like we all sit on our couches at night, I'm sure, with a laptop, a phone, an iPad, the television. We can be found via social media, WhatsApp, Slack, email, texting. There is no downtime anymore in the law. So even like that used to be the realm of big law. Like you were making lots of money, but you were expected to work those hours. Now, even like solo practitioners are expected to be on call like at 9:00 at night on a Wednesday, because we can be. And we don't know how to work that way. We're not wired as human beings. Our brain hasn't caught up with the technology that we now have. And we're just not wired to work 24/7. And lawyers are trying really hard to do that. And we have a bad relationship with time. So I know lawyers, for instance, who they're on meetings, calls, client things, 8 hours a day. When do you do the actual legal work? At night.
That's where you have to learn how to delegate too. And that's what my coach taught me, is like figure out what you don't love doing, what's your not unique brilliance, and hire someone to help you do that. And that's a hard thing sometimes for an entrepreneur to give that up.
So one of the things I find is, so as I said, in 1993, I was a legal assistant. We had paralegals, we had people. I see a lot of larger law firms cutting their support staff.
Wow.
At a time when we really need that backup, when we really need someone to delegate to, that is being cut by a lot of even larger firms. So more and more of the non-billable work is being pushed to the fee earners, to the lawyers. And in order to get those billable hours in, you got to put them somewhere, right? And it's like, if I'm on the phone 8 hours a day, when do I actually draft the contract? When do I draft the pleadings? It takes over my night. It takes over my lifetime. And that's not healthy. And we have a really unhealthy profession because of this bad relationship with time.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's unique to lawyers, but I think today, like you said, we can be sitting on our couch with our laptop, all our devices. They're not even phones anymore. Everything's a device. You have to get used to that term. And, and then, we get carried away, or we're checking our email, even if we're not home or on our phone, we're always checking our email. And, sometimes we feel if it's a client, we want to reply back to them, but that's cutting into our personal time. So it's not easy. It's great to have someone like you to help. It really is. So, I'm a strong believer in mindset, and I think, I'm just wondering, like, I feel that it's helped me achieve my success. So how do you think it plays a role with lawyers and some of your clients to develop a healthier lifestyle?
So one of the things that I kind of have a mantra that I've developed when I'm also an adjunct law professor at Suffolk Law School. So the class I teach has one central theme, and it's just because you were taught to practice law a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way to practice law for you. And so I have lawyers coming to me and they're struggling in their law practice. They don't know how to manage time. They don't know how to manage their associates. They don't know a lot. Like, it's the business stuff that stresses them out. And one of the things I find is they're struggling to practice law the way somebody else practiced law and taught them how to practice law. And then they think something's wrong with me. Why does this other person, why are they making so much money? Why is it easy for them? Why are they able to do it and I can't? There's something wrong with me. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. What works for them, it doesn't work for you. And that's okay. You can change the way you practice law. You can, granted, there's court rules and all of that stuff, so you got to abide by those. But like, if it doesn't work for you, stop doing it. Try something else. And there's this push-pull with, but I was taught how to do it that way. What will people think of me if I do it differently? What will the other people in the firm or the other partners think of me if I do something different, something the way they don't do it? And I'm like, okay, you can sit there and think about how like their opinion of you while you literally stress out for hours and take years off your life. Or you can try something different and actually start maybe enjoying the practice of law. And that's a really hard thing, because I really think lawyers feel there's one way to practice law. And actually, there doesn't have to be one way to practice law if you don't want it that way.
So I think that, when we grew up without these electronics, we were used to doing things a certain way. And, our parents taught us to do certain things a certain way because that's the way they did it. And that's the way we do it. And that's the way we're teaching our children. And it kind of reminded me of a funny little anecdote. I just moved in recently, a couple of months ago, to a new apartment, and I bought shelf paper. And so my daughter was helping me unpack, and I'm telling her we have to put this. She's laughing at me and saying, "Mom, why are you doing that? Just because your mother did it and your mother told you to do it? Nobody uses shelf paper anymore." Like, oh, okay. I don't know. It's just a habit. And I'm just doing it for no reason because it's rote. That's the way I was taught to do it. And that's the way I was showed how to do it. And I think that's the same in business too. You know, we were taught and shown to do things a completely different way. And sometimes we're afraid to try new things, but it's really the only way to see any growth and to move on and embrace, you know, all the new technology and all the things that are happening to us. And I love that it's mindset too. It's like, I really believe that what you put out there in the universe is what you get. And that's mindset to me.
So like, for instance, again, when I started in 1993, the lawyer I worked for was in his 60s. He used to write his patent applications with a pencil and a yellow legal pad. Like, so how did he teach his associates how to write patent applications? With a pencil and a yellow legal pad. He didn't even know how to type. He couldn't even use a typewriter. He couldn't type his own name. So like, if your lessons came from a generation where technology wasn't the first thing, or they were literally using a pencil and a yellow legal pad to draft, you know, important legal documents, maybe you really should like say, maybe I should be doing this differently. Like, right? Like, it's that notion of like, we have 5 generations right now working in law. Like, and I think we all know, we all think differently. Like the baby boomer, you know, managing partner, the Gen Xer, the millennial, the Gen Z, the Gen Y, like it's kind of crazy in there. So like, just let people practice in a way that plays to their strengths, as opposed to forcing somebody to do it differently.
That makes so much sense to me. So let's take a little break now. We're here with Kelli Proia, and we're going to have a little quick commercial and come back and talk some more about lawyer coaching.
Hey there. I just want to tell you a little bit about my new book that just came out called Mastering Your Financial Life Cycles. And here it is. It's how to successfully manage your money in every decade of life. I co-authored this with my CFO, Liz Levy, and together we created this manual that's going to help you through every stage of life. We talk about having a baby, we talk about young adulthood, pre-retirement, what to do when you're at that age of retirement, if you're contemplating divorce, do you need an estate plan? We cover all of these, each subject in a different chapter. And I really think that you're going to find this so helpful, because at the end of every chapter, we have checklists that you can look at and you can use, and they can be a guide for you. So this is a wonderful manual that we've created. It's available on Amazon. You can also find it on our website at judithheft.com/book. And we're here for you. If you need anything, reach out. I hope you enjoy the book. Here's another picture of it, just so you know what's going on. Here it is. And I'm really proud of it. It's my second book, and I'd love to have you read it and give me your feedback. Judy Heft, judithheft.com, financial and lifestyle concierge, celebrating 26 years in business. And over the years, I've learned so much. And what I've been trying to do is impart a little bit of this knowledge to you, so I can help all of you become as financially organized as I am.
And we're back here. We're back here with Kelli Proia, episode 97 on Mastering Your Financial Life. And today we're talking with Kelli, who's a lawyer success coach. And I know, Kelli, that you work with a lot of new emerging lawyers that are starting their own businesses, or maybe they've been a lawyer for a little while, working in a corporation or a larger firm, and they decide it's time to go out on their own. And so how do you guide them through the process? It's similar to having a work-life balance. You want to start that in the beginning, let them have that work-life balance, teach them how to do that, so they're not calling you in another 10 years of aggravation or frustration. But so how do you work with new lawyers starting their own firms?
So normally the lawyers I work with, they are experienced. They're not coming out of law school, starting their new firm. So they've worked elsewhere, and normally they are seeking a better work-life balance. They're seeking more of their money. Like, they realize, I'm like the rainmaker, and my money is going to the other partners. My money is going elsewhere. So if I do it myself, I can keep more of my, of the money, and more of, because I'm working really hard to make it. So What I do is I work with them to create their business. And it's really, there's 5 parts to every business. So what are you going to sell? So what are the law services you are actually going to sell? So I just did this exercise with a client who's a tax attorney. And what he really decided he wanted to be was do tax appeals. Like that was his sweet spot. That was where he brought the most value. Those were the things that he really just enjoyed working on. So once we realized, what do you want to do? What's the work you want to do? How are you going to market it? How are you going to sell it? So I work with them on their website content, what they should be putting up on social media, all of that type of stuff. And then I help them if they need technology. I help them identify the things that they need. So is it like if you're a trust and estates attorney, do you need a particular piece of software that helps you write trusts and wills? Or if you're like in this case, a tax attorney, like what's the software? Do you need a CRM system, something of that nature? Like for instance, he was going to use Clio. So those are the things where it's like, how do you set up a really good infrastructure that supports you in what you want to do? And so that's what I do for my clients. It's what works for them. So a lot of them come and they're like, I'm going to be a generic trust and estates lawyer, or I'm going to be this, generic, family law lawyer. And it's like, in the end, it's like, what really makes you money? What really lights you up when you go into your office? Because being a solo is hard. Most solos only bill about 2.5 hours of billable time a day. Like a good solo doubles that. So if you're working really hard and the max you're probably billing is 5 hours a day, it's really hard to show up in the office every day. So and also, I think a lot of people don't realize half of American lawyers are solo practitioners. We all think lawyers work in big law firms. They don't. So there is a big struggle amongst solos to actually make a good living off of their work. And I want my clients to really like what they do because they're going to spend so much time doing it.
Well, that's the most important key piece, I think, is doing what you love, right? And then absolutely.
Well, so most lawyers went to law school because they want to help people. Most lawyers went to law school because they really wanted to be this thing called a lawyer. And that I completely get. I'm one of them. And it's the other stuff that gets in the way of that. So if I can alleviate that angst, from the other stuff, and help them just focus on what they really like, it's a win-win.
Sounds great. In a perfect world, that would be awesome.
Yes.
They all need to hire you. So how has the legal profession evolved? What do lawyers need to do to stay ahead or to stay important or prominent in their careers?
So one of the things that changed significantly was after the 2008 financial crisis. So after the financial crisis, there was an outcry from corporate lawyers saying, we need more legal services for less money. Our CEOs are coming to us and they're telling us we can't have the budget we used to have because everybody had to slash, their budgets. And law firms really had a hard time addressing that. Because in a law firm, you never decrease your rates, you only increase your rates. So this became a really difficult relationship between the GCs that buy most of the legal services and lawyers. So what these lawyers decided to do was seek alternatives to lawyers. And we have had a rise in the alternative to lawyers. So that can be technology, that can be services like an outside GC, where it's like, I don't need to hire a full-time general counsel. I'll just use, people on a contract when and where I need them, right? So there's that rise of the alternative. And there's things like in the commercial space, LegalZoom. How much money does LegalZoom make that a lawyer could make? So people are seeking technology. So in the personal law space, things like trust and estates, family law, landlord tenant, real estate, you see this huge rise in people representing themselves because they are literally being priced out of the market. So I just saw somebody saying their billable hour rate is $1,900 an hour. So yes. So even if you're not at that level of legal services, it's really hard for most people to come up with $400 for an emergency, let alone $400 an hour to pay your lawyer for your divorce, your will, your real estate transaction. We know that in landlord tenant, 96% of the tenants show up in court without a lawyer. And literally they all lose. Like we know from the data, if you don't have a lawyer, your outcome is significantly worse than if you are represented. But if you're being evicted from your apartment, you probably don't have them. If you don't have money to pay rent, you don't have the money to pay a lawyer to stand next to you in court. So alternatives to lawyers, people are seeking them out. It's like we're seeking alternatives to everything. Like, I mean, we buy on Amazon. I do Target pickup all the time. I don't even go into a Target store half the time. We buy things differently. And we have concierge medicine. We have teledoc where I can talk to a doctor as well as I can talk to you online. Law needs to catch up with that because how we buy today in 2024 is not how we bought legal services in the 1990s or the 2000s. So couple that now with the rise of artificial intelligence. So I've been teaching my class, 21st Century Lawyer, since 2018. In 2023, spring of 2023, or 2022, I guess, I had to completely revamp the syllabus to include AI because is going to revamp the entire way we practice law. If I can go in and draft a will in literally 30 seconds via an AI tool like a ChatGPT or a Claude or something like that, why am I going to pay a lawyer $6,000 for a will and a trust, right? And people are going to argue with me saying, but I bring value. And I get it. You do. But we need to start looking at law like medicine. We need some self-help options. So we need to be able to go somewhere and be able to buy the legal equivalent of Advil, allergy medicine, Band-Aids. If you had to go to the dentist every time you needed a toothbrush and toothpaste, all our teeth would be falling out. Like, that's right? True. Like, yeah. We need to bring something to the consumer, the legal consumer, that is a self-help option. We need a kind of an urgent care option as well, where you don't need to go to a doctor. So for instance, my daughter sliced her hand cutting an apple. She needed stitches. I called her pediatrician. The pediatrician was like, we don't even do stitches. You have to go to urgent care for that. So we go to the urgent care. You know, they had a stitches guy, like literally like the guy who was like trained in doing stitches. So he did her stitches and everything. And in the end, I'm like, do I think she got shortchanged medical treatment because she saw a nurse practitioner as opposed to a doctor? It's like, no, I don't. Like when I take an Advil for my headache, do I feel like, oh, I didn't get value out of that Advil? Like, no, of course I got value out of the Advil. It took my headache away. So we need to look at the universe where our lawyers really bring value and what are the alternatives? Because AI is coming for, I won't say our jobs per se, but lawyers who use AI will replace lawyers who don't use AI is the way.
Wow, that's an interesting observation and prediction.
So one of the things I teach at Suffolk and Suffolk Law School in Boston, the entire university had an AI program last week. And they were talking about how they are changing the way they teach for AI. So for instance, incoming business students are actually taught how to use AI, not like, to write a paper or to answer a test or an exam question, right? But they are taught how to query the bot, right? The chat bot, and analyze the answers they get back. They're being taught how to use the systems and then take what they learn and how to use it in business settings. So there was someone from the law school, there was someone from the business school, and there was something from the regular, undergrad. And all of them are revamping their curriculums in order to embrace AI. How do we teach this generation? Because job descriptions now want AI savvy. They want AI savvy employees.
Well, it's a whole new world out there, isn't
Yes.
it? And every day it's changing, and there's so many new technology and new things. And yeah, I was talking to someone this morning about how a procedure he's having done, and he had to swallow this thing that's a camera. And then he's hooked up this machine, and the camera can see what's going on in his small intestine. It's amazing what's going on. And now, AI with the GPT, it's pretty interesting. So this was really a great discussion, Kelli. Thank you so much. So how can our listeners find you?
So I am at lawducate.com, LAWDUCATE.com. I can be found on LinkedIn. I can be found via, I'm starting an Instagram channel, so it's out there. Kelli J. Proia is my handle, and basically Kelli at lawducate.com, and just go check out my website.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Kelli. I hope our listeners find you. It was a really interesting discussion. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Judy, for having me. This was awesome.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Mastering Your Financial Life, hosted by Judy Heft. You can read chapters of her books and catch prior episodes of the show at www.judithheft.com. Thank you for your positive comments and sharing this show with others.